Hi everybody, welcome back to my studio. I'm Cindy with Dare to be Artsy, and today I'm going to show you guys some fun, unique ways to make some cards to get a little artsy. The first one we're going to do is a shadow box card, and this is using our homegrown collection with our Honey Bunny stamp set. Another one that is really unique is this is called a slider lock card. So when you first look at the card, it doesn't open. You actually have to slide off this piece to open the card. So that's a really fun card to create. And then we have some really great background slimline die cards. So be sure and stay to the end. I'm going to show you lots of samples of some really fast cards that you can make with our background slimline dies. So let's get started. We're going to start by making the shadow box card. Now with this sample, I'm using the Artsy Daisy paper from the Homegrown collection. You're going to take a base at 6 1/4 by 5 1/2. You're actually going to cut two pieces this size. Let's get the scoreboard out. This paper is the Garden Party. I just wanted to make a sample using a different paper, all from the same paper collection, just to show you some options. Now first we're going to score it at 1/2 inch and at 1 inch. Then you're going to rotate the paper and do the same to the other side. So at 1 inch and 1/2 inch. Now take your bone folder and fold it back so the side that has the daisies is on the inside. And then we're making kind of a Z fold on the ends. Just make sure you give it a really good crease on both sides. All right, so there's the cover of the second one. Now I'm going to take these fun rectangle framelits and I'm going to cut a hole in the center of the cover. So I'm just going to make sure it's good and centered, tape it down, run that through your machine. Now you can save this inside for later. You can use it on the back of your card. Now let's create a nice red border. Take your cardstock and cut 4 inches by 5 1/4. And then we're going to attach it to the inside of the front panel. I could take the die and just cut it right out of the red paper, but then you'd have to kind of line it up. So this is just an easier way to make sure that it's lined up and fits perfectly. Make sure it's not covering one of the score lines. Now you can take the next frame and line it up perfectly. Just make sure it's centered top to bottom and left to right. Use a piece of washi tape and run this through your machine. Now this inside piece is ready to go and you can use this for another project or layer it up and attach it to the back of your panel. Now let's take this piece. It's the Abundant Harvest, still part of the Homegrown collection. You're going to do this the same way you did the other piece. You're going to score it at 1/2 inch, 1 inch, rotate, and score it at 1/2 inch and 1 inch again. We want all of these veggies and stuff to show on the inside. And you've got strawberries on the back. For the original piece, I just put that on a white cardstock and I just put that little centerpiece in the middle. But this time I decided I wanted the strawberries to also show on the back. Now we're taking our Land and Clouds border. This fits slimline cards, but I just cut it down. So I'm putting some grass in the inside. This one is a little bit deeper. And I've taken the clouds and cut it down. It's just 4 inches wide. And I'm going to lay it in the top. It doesn't have to go all the way to the top. Now this grass piece is a little bit shorter, and I'm going to attach it to the inside of the front panel. It's a little wide here, so I'm just snipping off a little piece. You just don't want it to cover the score line. Now when you flip it over, you just have 2 different layers of grass, so it really adds to the dimension. Now we're going to use our Honey Bunny stamp set. We've got a couple bunnies here, and they can be stamped and colored in. So we did a white bunny and a little brown bunny. You could also cut the images right out of the paper. So here's a bunny that's cut from the same paper collection called Hop to It is the piece of paper. Now this little piece is about 2 inches by 1.5. I used the same paper that we have on the back panel. I could have just glued one of the bunnies to the inside panel, but I really wanted there to be a little more dimension. So we're going to attach him to the center panels. I can't attach him all the way across because that inside piece moves back and forth. So you can only attach it to one side. So just got to figure out where you're going to want him, and I'm just going to put some adhesive on here. Depending on what that back panel is, you could use a piece of acetate instead of the pattern paper, but this back panel is really busy anyway, so you really don't notice that it's a separate little panel piece. But again, if you really wanted something smaller to float in there, you could use a little piece of acetate. Now I'm going to put my adhesive just on the 1/2 inch, on the very far outside 1/2 inch piece. I'm going to line up my paper on the left where there is no adhesive, and then slowly push the paper down so I make sure it's lined up really well. Now I'm going to put the adhesive on the very far left 1/2 inch panel. And it's just really important that these papers line up. So I'm going to start on the right, fold it down, make sure it's lining up really well. And then when I get to the end, just push those pieces together. Now you'll see how those little fold lines tuck into the card. So this folds down to a standard A2 size card. And you see that the bunny is just attached, so he moves back and forth, watering the plants. Let's go ahead and attach the brown bunny to the front. We're going to put some foam tape on the one side of him. Make sure it's not on the whole thing where you're going to get sticky that doesn't attach to the paper. So you just want to put the adhesive where it's going to attach to the paper. Let's go ahead and add a piece of foam tape to the back of our carrot. And the die that cuts this carrot, there's also that die will also cut the images on some of the other pieces of paper as well. So if you don't want to color all of your pieces, you could definitely cut them right out of the paper. Now here's a little teeny flower. I thought this would be nice on the inside. Probably would have been better to attach it first, but it's okay. I can tuck it in there. Just put some little glue in there. Now let's add a little sentiment. I care it about you. This stamp set has quite a few options to choose from. I'm going to take this little banner and I'm going to score it at 1 1/4 inches. And then again at 1 inch, and then rotate it and do the same to the other side. This is just going to add some dimension to this little banner. And I just kind of eyeballed where I stamped it, but it's good to kind of try and center that. Just so this will hold down a little bit better, I'm going to add a little bit of glue to the inside crease. If you really want this to stand out a little bit more, you could leave this step off. Now we just had to add this to the front of the card. You can do it at an angle or just centered at the top. I'm going to put some score tape on the back of just the outside flaps. So this will still allow for the main part of the banner to stick up just a little bit. So you can just bend it a little bit to add that extra dimension. And I think I'm just going to go straight up at the top. So you can see I let that inside piece stick up just a little bit. And here's that first version using the green and white polka dot. Now I've stamped this, hopping by to say hello, and I'm going to add this to the back. And that will leave a space for you to sign your card. And that red piece, again, is just the inside piece that I cut out of that front panel piece. Now let's move on to the next card. This one is called a slider lock card. This piece slides up and then you open your card. We're using the Summertime Petals collection, and this is Bouquet for You for the stamp set. The base of the card is 11 inches by 5.5 inches. You're going to want your scoreboard out again, and I'm going to score it at 2 inches and 3/4. And then I'm going to rotate it and do the same to the other side. Use your bone folder to give it a nice crease. Now you're going to notice that the edges join exactly in the center, and you want a little bit of a gap. So instead of giving you kind of some strange measurements, I thought it was easier to do it this way, and just on one side, you're just going to cut a little sliver off of the end. You can see just a small amount, probably about 1/16 of an inch. And then that gives you a nice little galley. All right, on the inside piece, you're going to cut a piece of paper to 5 1/4 by 5 1/4. Attach that to the inside. And then this piece is 5 3/8 by 2 5/8. You're going to do it for the outside and the inside. So I used different patterns from the Summertime Petal collection. I love the bows on the back of this piece. We're going to use those bows later because one of the dies that works with the stamp set also cuts those bows out of the paper. You could leave these panels white, but I just thought it was a little prettier to jazz this up a little bit more on the inside. So there's the main piece. Let's go ahead and do the inside panel. You'll notice the squares there. These are from the wavy framelits. I use this piece a lot, this die set a lot. Now, it's important on the inside, you want these pieces flat. I like to add dimension to everything, but because of that slider piece, you really do want it flat. Now this sentiment says, plant a seed of friendship, reap a bouquet of happiness. And here's a little bouquet we're going to add to the inside. This bouquet, you'll notice that there's a pattern on the back of this because this flower was actually cut right out of the paper. And see how this one has foam tape on it? You wouldn't want that on the inside piece. Again, it could get stuck when that locking mechanism slides up and down. And here's the bow. See, the die will line up directly with the paper. So we're going to cut this bow out. The stamp set also has a bow that you could stamp, but sometimes it's just easy to use that die and cut the image right out of the paper. Nice little touch. Again, we're keeping everything on the inside flat. Now let's go to making the slider piece. This is going to be the front of the slider piece. And here we can add dimension because it's on the outside. I'm just going to center that up. Now this is a potted plant. It comes on the same stamp set with the bouquet. Let's pop this up too. Here's a little banner, and I went ahead and stamped "For You" on it. I'm going to add another piece of foam tape to one side of the banner so it kind of sticks up a little bit. This banner is from the very inside piece of the wavy Slimline framelits. Okay, now you're going to take just regular cardstock, 3 inches by 3 inches. It could be, depending on what you're putting on the front of a card, it could be a different size, but the 3 by 3 works for this one. They just all need to be square. You're going to take 2 of those squares and score it in half. So this is just scored at 1.5 and 1.5. Make sure they're folded really good. Now we're going to put the folded parts together. You're going to take your plain white paper, you're going to put some liquid glue or any kind of adhesive really on one panel that's folded. And you're going to attach that to one of the base pieces with the folded part in the center. Now you're going to take your next piece and butt that up right next to the other piece, so the folds meet in the middle. All right, there's the beginning part. Now let's go ahead and add the 4th piece to the top of that. Now I could add our decorated piece right to the front of this, but by adding just this extra layer, it's just going to make it that much more sturdy. So I think it's always nice to go ahead and do the whole mechanism together. So you kind of have these wings. Then just to make sure that the score is vertical, just test it out before you attach that front panel. You don't want it to go on sideways. double check, and center that on your decorated panel. Make sure that dries pretty good. Now that piece is ready. And these edges of the card are going to tuck right into those little galleys. So you just slide that down and it holds the card closed. You can make this in a standard A2 size card too. You just change the little size of the mechanism, but it does basically the same thing. Hope you enjoyed this card. The next one, we're going to use our wavy Slimline framelit dies. You can see all the different layers. The inside panel, those little banners I used on the other card as well. And then the wavy framelets that we just used, we're going to use on this one. This is using the Raccoon Party stamp set. Lots of different sentiments, lots of different raccoons. The dies that match this also cut a lot of these raccoons right out of the paper. For this project, I went ahead and stamped and colored them in. The base of the card is 8.5 wide by 7.5, and then you fold it in half. This pattern piece I cut right out of the largest die. This is called Banner Day. I love the banners on the back of this paper. But we're just going to have a little bit of the edge showing around the outside. So I thought the teeny print on this paper was going to work really great for that. And this layers so you get this nice little, about a 1/16 of an inch border all the way around the standard size card. The next layer is our sprinkles on top, brown, and we used it with the waves. And then we took our squares from the wavy square framelets that I think coordinates with this so well, and we cut 3 different little squares out. Look at all the popsicles on the back of this paper. Love this sheet. This again is from our Ice Cream Social Paper collection. I'm going to use foam tape around the outside edges of this. And I'm adding quite a bit of tape to it just to make it a little more sturdy. I'm cutting some of the pieces off because I don't want them to be seen from the front panel. Make sure you have some on the edges as well. And then put some in the center too, so that you know that the panel is going to pop up off of the back page. Otherwise it could kind of sink in a little bit. So it's a little bit busy in the background, so I wanted to do the stripe. This is from the Sweet Mobile piece of paper. So I put that in the background. This has got the ice cream trucks on the back. We are going to use one of these ice cream trucks later. Again, the dies that match the stamps are going to cut those ice cream trucks out, or at least cut quite a few of them. So I'm just going to center that piece on there and layer this top piece on top. Now I think this could be a really cute shaker card as well. Put some acetate in between this and add some little sprinkles, but we wanted to keep this one simple. If you were going to make this a shaker card, you would make sure that that foam tape didn't have any gaps in it. I love these ice cream sprinkles. Now you're going to take a banner. Again, this is from that same wavy Slimline framelets set. I'm going to score it, twice, just like we did on that other card. So I just kind of eyeballed it, but it's a little bit off center. So that banner on the right side is a little bit longer. So I'm just going to fake that, score it, move the score line over just a little bit. There, that looks a little more even. And you don't have to do this step. Again, I just think it adds more dimension. That's why I like to do this. For this, I'm going to add a little bit of glue in the crease. And then we can decide where we want to put this, on the top or the bottom. The stamp set I'm using, it says, tomorrow we can eat broccoli, but today we can eat ice cream. And I did stamp the little sentiment a little bit lower on the panel because we're going to go ahead and position this at the bottom. And then I'm going to put an ice cream truck kind of overlaying on top of this. So it's going to overlay the orange banner just a little bit. And here's the ice cream truck that I stamped and colored in. I put some foam tape on the back of this. Now I think it needs an extra layer, so I'm just going to double up the foam tape. I really want it to pop up, and I want it to overlap the banner. Now here are a couple of the raccoons that I stamped and colored in. Again, I could have cheated and actually die cut the raccoons right out of the paper, but I wanted to go ahead and color these. So I'm tucking them in the little windows just a little bit. And I didn't think it was quite done. We have all these really cute ice cream cones and popsicles. There are stamps that you can stamp and color in, but for this I went ahead and just cut a bunch of them right out of the paper. And I'm just going to have these floating around. And I put foam tape on the back of these too, just to pop them up. I love the extra dimension. Now, something I didn't do here, but I think you could, is add a little glossy accents to these. I think that would be a really fun extra sparkle to the page. And there's your Slimline card. This is cut right out of the paper. Let's do this on the inside just to decorate it up a little bit. And our paper, this is the Ice Cream Bandit paper. On the back of it, all of our papers have a little strip on the back of where the barcode is. And these are perfect to decorate the inside of cards. Actually, I use them everywhere. But I love this with all the little teeny popsicles. It's a little long, so I just need to snip it off the edge. And let's go ahead and add our little ice cream truck. We're going to put some foam tape on the back of this one. And he's ready to go. So I hope you enjoyed this extra card. We have lots of Slimline dies. This is the grass and the clouds. And it works great on a scrapbook page. This is a 12-inch wide page, a 12 by 12. But just by moving the die over a little bit, you can make it fit on a scrapbook page. These little bunnies I also cut right out of the paper. This is our wildflower background die. Love this for a simple card. And this is our tropical leaves. It comes with all the individual pieces and the one long piece. This is our retro background die. Here's a simple card, and here's one That's a shaker card with our Totally Awesome stamp set. And this is really fun. It's got all these teeny little dies in it too to decorate up your page. You can find all these Slimline dies on our website at daretobeartsy.com. This is our honeycomb Slimline die. Go to the class kits and bundles section and you're going to find all of the supplies needed to make these cards at home. Now have a great